Welcome to the first edition of Sky Sports Cricket Ashes podcast. We'll be coming to you right throughout the summer, and I'm very pleased to say that I'm joined by Eoin Morgan and Kumar Sangakkara. It is cricket not as we know it, isn't it?
No, not at all. It almost feels like we've had the drama of a full test match all in the space of one day. It has been pure entertainment, and normally when you lead into a big series or there's drama or history between the two sides, it never lives up to the billing. It doesn't. The build-up is always the best, but this today has not disappointed.
And the drama is continuing because at the moment there is still live play going on, so we're going to try and time it to finish this podcast for the last ball. Kumar, it's almost as if you feel as if something else is going to happen now as well, particularly if it's Broad and Warner.
Yeah, and that's the beauty of this declaration. Both sides won't be unhappy about it. I watched the body language of the English players, and they back that decision 100%. They're actually so into the game and the way they play that it's fabulous to watch. And Australia, on the other hand, won't mind this as well, because if they get through this session on such a placid pitch, batting a day and a half to 2 days would be right up there in their minds. And if they can get to that 500 plus mark, 550, 560, they'll be aiming there, then the advantage swings back Australia's way. But right now England has had a wonderful day.
Brilliant day, 393 for 8 declared, and time to take a few Aussie scalps before the end of the day's play as well. Let's go back to the start if I can, because we spoke about the expectation of this series, and there certainly was a buzz right at the start of the day, and it's really lived up to it.
Absolutely. The lead into the toss, the first ball, was just exceptional. Everybody who bought a ticket today got here early. You could feel the anticipation building. Pat Cummins losing the toss and Ben Stokes choosing to bat first, which is rare because, you know, the whole of the build-up was about both sides trying to stick to the mantra that has worked for them. Australia over the last 2 years, culminating in winning the World Test Championship, and England over the last 13 Test matches. The extraordinary level of aggression that they brought into Test match cricket that has posed a number of questions about how we play the game. So to see Ben...
So were you surprised?
Yeah, a little bit. When I saw the wicket, I totally understood why. It looked like a day 2, day 3 possible wicket. It actually looked very similar to a one-day international wicket here. And when you play one-day internationals here, you score 350, 400. So wasn't a lot of bounce in it. But certainly it looked really good to bat on. So certainly Ben sticking with his mantra, and right from the first ball, the Australian skipper Pat Cummins delivered not that bad of a ball, you'd have to say. The length was fine, the line was a little bit wide, but Zach Crawley just climbed into it and the place erupted with excitement and relief at the same time, because a lot of sports teams over the years get to big occasions and then go away from what has actually worked for them. The big surprise for me was actually how Pat Cummins and his bowling unit set their fields right from the get-go. It's almost like they had a sort of preconceived idea of the outcome and went immediately to plan B. They made England fight hard for their boundaries, even though they probably scored over the average amount of boundaries in the first session. I think it was 12 and the average is 10. So that was probably the surprise, but yeah.
Well, there's surprises right throughout, Kumar. We've chatted about this today quite a bit because there was England named their squad, or their team, 2 days ago. Australia was still a little bit, who are they going to go with, particularly with their bowling attack? And the big question was around, will Boland keep his position? Hazlewood was looking to come back in. Who was it going to be, Hazlewood or Stark? It turned out to be on a pitch that we know is probably going to get drier. Reverse swing will come into play. No Stark. Did it surprise you?
Yes and no. I mean, you understand the dilemma that Australia would have been in. They watched the World Test Championship finals. Stark looked rusty, went for a lot of runs, and that's how England get into games in terms of the Ashes or any other Test match they played in the last 12 months. They like to go at a rate. So if Stark is actually bowling a little bit loose and not keeping things tight, that could really open the door for England.
Yeah.
But Hazlewood, extreme high quality. His record against England and in England really backs up why he'd get a look ahead. But you also have to look at the conditions. You also have an off spinner in your side. You're bowling at a predominantly right-handed batting lineup. So reverse swing, as you mentioned, the ability to change things up on a flat wicket. If there's low bounce, Stark challenges you on that front foot, stump height, challenges both the inside edge and the outside edge, can go head high with the bumpers. So you get a lot more variety in terms of a Stark, even if he's not bowling quite as well as you want to. So you're probably looking at this pitch, looking at Nathan Lyon and the impact of Nathan Lyon as the match goes on, the impact of reverse swing as the match goes on. You would probably kind of tip the scales in favor of Stark. Now, the match is 1 day old. We can't forget that. So we'll know more whether that decision is vindicated or they got it right later on. But it's fascinating, isn't it? We're talking about this test match as if it has progressed a long way into this game. And that's the nature of this brand of cricket that England plays. And Eoin was talking about the boundaries, but on average 17 singles in a session. I think they tripled that, England, mostly because of the fields that were set. I was a little bit surprised, especially when I understood why they might do it in terms of trying to test the patience of England. But when they had Joe Root in along with Brooke, who just came in, they still had the field spread. So both the batters didn't have to do much to actually get runs of really good deliveries that would normally be stopped by a close-in fielder. And then, of course, they had to bring Lyon into the attack, because the pace attack was very similar to each other in terms of what they did. Yeah. They bowled really well, of course, but still. And either Lyon did exceptionally well, first of all, to make the immediate decision to go round the wicket, brings LBW into play, outside edge into play, stick with it and bowl the overs that he did, take the 4 wickets that he did, really helped Australia. If it weren't for that bowling spell, I think you would have found that England would have really run away with the game. And the fact that he constantly was at the batters and picking up wickets helps. He just didn't do a containing job. And that's why probably this concept of testing the patience of the England batters constantly through this series will keep on growing in Australia's mind, because that actually does get you wickets. But they might have to reassess how often they spread the field and how often they crowd the batter as they go through.
We've got two of the greats of Australian cricket in terms of captaincy, and Mark Taylor and Ricky Ponting as part of the Sky Sport commentary team. And if we had them mic'd up for the first session of play, I think that would have been just as entertaining what was going on out in the middle, because that they just go back to their style of play, and they were sort of not mortified, but they just could not believe it. I think one of the comments was, if Shane Warne was here today, he would have been bolting out on the ground and physically grabbing some of the Aussies and putting them into positions to say, don't give them the single, don't worry about the boundary, get some wickets. When can we say it's worked or not worked for Australia, this approach? Is it something you're going to wait to the end of this test match, or is it the end of the series?
It's probably the end of the series, but you have to look at it. You have to answer the question that they're trying to pose to England. And for me, you sit in bowling meetings, you stand at the end of a mark with a bowler, and the one thing they always say is, well, if it's my best ball and it's bowled, I don't want any runs to go off it. But today Australia conceded numerous singles and allowed England to rotate the strike. Yes, they restricted the boundaries to a certain extent, but they almost forgot how difficult it is to start your innings, and went away from, there's logic to the frustration from Tubby and Punter, because for the last 2 years, Pat Cummins or any Australian captain has never said a field like that at the very beginning of a test match. So they've almost gone to the foregone conclusion that England are going to belt our best ball for 4 the whole time and get ahead of us, and we don't want to be out of the game. When you look at any form of 4-day or 5-day cricket, as a batting first unit, you're more likely to lose the game early in the first day than actually with the ball. By a stretch, you can lose 4 or 5 wickets, but that is just a risk that you take on when you're trying to hit boundaries, and it wasn't there for England today at all.
Sorry, just starting, and I remember I was asked in the com box as well, what would you have been if on this pitch batting? I said maybe about 5 not out in the first hour, because that's how I used to start an innings in Test cricket: slow, watchful, let it go. England first ball, hit it for 4. So in terms of a fielding captain, you're thinking, well, it doesn't matter how they start. Then they just know they play one way. If it's there, they are going to hit it, and and that probably makes them think a little bit too much sometimes in terms of strategy.
Yeah.
There was a time where England were in strife, so 175 for 4 when Brooke went out in sort of bizarre kind of circumstances where he had no idea where the ball went from line. He was sort of looking up and around, it's gone and bowled him. Then Ben Stokes come out, and so it was double wicket. They were in strife, and then two guys that love batting together, they average 50 together. Already in test matches, they know each other from Yorkshire, and Bairstow and Root, they come together, 100-run partnership, they wrestle things back in England's favour.
Oh, they're just outstanding together. I think it was their 11th century partnership. They've known each other since they were 11, 12 years old, playing youth cricket for Yorkshire, and they just know how to rotate strike, they know how to access the boundary, they understand the flow of both individuals' innings and how they go about their business. And if you just rewind a little bit to the likes of Brooks' dismissal and Ollie Pope's dismissal, I actually thought Australia have had the luck throughout the day. Ollie Pope just pretty much missed a straight enough ball from Nathan Lyon, and then you had the extraordinary turn of events that led to Harry Brook being bowled. But to rebuild in the mantra that they did, they never wavered from playing aggressive cricket. They always would still look to access the boundary or rotate the strike, no matter what the field was set by Pat Cummins. So that rebuilding period was extremely important for England.
We talk about Johnny Bairstow. So he's had a horrific leg injury. He comes back. He got a very confident shout the first ball that he faced out in the middle. His heart would have been in his mouth. But it looked as if he just picked up from last summer, which is an amazing thing to do with that time out of the game.
He didn't look rusty at all. Missed a lot of cricket. Rehabilitation would have been tough. He also seemed to have enjoyed his injury period. He needed to get a little bit fitter when he came back. But I think the one thing that really changed things for him in terms of not just a recovery but looking forward to this series was that he was given the gloves. He loves wicket keeping. He wants to wear the gloves and be England's wicket keeper. So there's a lot of chat about, Ben Foakes is the best wicket keeper in the world. Why not him? But actually this is the right call to make. In modern day cricket, when you have a number 7, he's been slotted into number 7, it's such a crucial position to bat in. You have to have an absolutely good bat that you can trust to not just bat with your main batters, but then bridge that gap with the tail. You all might have a second new ball in that period. And who better than Johnny Bairstow to do that? So is he competent enough with the glove to do the job? The answer, of course, is yes. And then, of course, the choice is made in his favour. And today he just showed what he could do. He was not just watchful, but the way he took on Lyon, over the offside, leg side, the sweeps, he was never tied down. And he scored a run a ball, which is extraordinary coming in at such a high-pressure situation. But he had an ideal foil in Joe Root. We always forget how sometimes Rooty gets lost in conversation. Sometimes we talk about Stephen Smith and Virat Kohli, and the ability of Root to adapt and play innings of absolute high quality is just a given in Test cricket for me, a given in white ball cricket as well. I think he's a fantastic T20 player as well. Unfortunately, he's in England and he's surrounded by extraordinary white ball players. But the fact that he came out today and took the time that he always, but he sometimes gets carried away with trying to maybe match the aggression around him. He doesn't have to. He always bats at a great rate. And today was a prime example of just exactly how he should bat. He just should be Joe Root. He played a couple of the Rams for 6, 88, 90 miles an hour. Doesn't matter, but he needs the time to do it. Doesn't have to do it too early. And he'll still score runs quickly enough. But he's the most important batter in this side for England. If he scores runs in the manner that he does, it frees everyone else around him. And if he gets another 200s in this series, England will very much fancy a chance of taking this series.
11,100 runs and continuing. He'll go down as England's best ever bat. Where does he fit, though, in the broader sense of the entire game?
Oh, in the broader sense, exactly where Kumar has talked about, right up there with the likes of Smith and Kohli and Williamson and De Villiers gone by, like names like that have been around for so long and so versatile. Over 11,000 runs, and he's still looking to improve his game. Average 50 odd in his Test match career, but under McCullum and Stokes, it's gone to 60 or just over 60, which is extraordinary because given the volume of runs and the classy nature in which he plays, it's a surprise that he just continues to evolve in his own way, and it's unbelievably admirable.
A declaration close to the end of play, and in and all amongst the hoopla, I didn't even see the end score there. I know Warner and Kawaja saw out the end of the day's play. There was a big chat about Broad v Warner. He was nice and confident though. 14 for none Australia at the end of the day's play. It sets things up very nicely for day 2. Eoin, Kumar, thank you so much for joining us on day 1 of the podcast. Day 2 will be coming to you live tomorrow, finishing off at the back end of play, but right at the start of the day, 10:15 in the morning. Sky Sports Cricket will be bringing you the pre-match for day 2 of the Ashes series.